everybody. My name is Rachel Vigil, and I am a proud principal at Manazno High School. And with me, I have Mr. Anthony Strickland, who is one of our math teachers at Manazno High School and also serves as our math department chair. Thank you all for being here.
Okay.
So, just letting you all know a little bit about who Manazno is. We are one of 13 comprehensive high schools within the Albuquerque Public Schools in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We serve about 1,400 students. Those students that come to us come from the inner city, and we also serve a large portion of our East Mountain schools, which is also like just rural land. So we have a very diverse student body within our school, probably the most diverse high school within Albuquerque and across the state of New Mexico as well. That is something that we really do hold near and dear, and something that we try to celebrate as a school is just all of the different cultural backgrounds that walk through the hallways of our campus. And so we're very, very proud of that. We have, and we're here today to talk mainly about the vertical articulation that Manazno has established with our feeder middle schools. And the problem of practice, or just something that we have been working toward over several years, but most in particular this year, is that of how can Manazno break away from just focusing within the walls of our school and break out into our community and our feeder schools in particular to learn more about who they are, what some of the barriers that they are facing, and how do we come together to help support our students, specifically here in the area of mathematics. Mr. Strickland is going to talk more about that, so I'm not really going to go too much into that, but this really has been a meeting of the minds to focus on the incoming 9th graders for next year as we place them in their Algebra 1 course, which is a required course for Albuquerque Public Schools and the state of New Mexico. It is important for us, and we've been focusing on this as a school, is to really be intentional about meeting students where they are and building them up from there. And we feel that regardless of where they are, you know, there is so much potential within them, even if they're struggling at this point in time, and we're just wanting to crack into what it is that makes them excited about school and try to build on that. So as we talk about Manazno's vertical articulation journey and the background, I want to back it up. So I started at Manazno High School in August of 2019. It was my first principal assignment, and so this is the 4th year that I've been at the school. When I came into Manazno, it was important for me to take a look at our data and kind of see where we were. And I had been fortunate to attend back then what was called Early Warning Systems Conference that was hosted between the New Mexico Public Education Department and the Talent Development Secondary. And so I attended that conference, and I walked out of there feeling just really refreshed and feeling like this is something that I kind of would like to explore further if ever I was in the position to do so. At the time, I was in a district position, so I was supporting schools, K-12, in a variety of domains. But when I attended this, I thought, you know, I do want to make my way back to a school, and should I ever do that, I really want to take some time to see what we can do in terms of launching a student success system. So, as you know, 2019, that was the fall, and the spring, everybody knows what happened, and no one wants to talk about that. We kind of want to move forward, and we are doing that. And although there were some challenges that were presented, it did slow down our work, but it did not stop the work. And so we were steadfast to what we were wanting to develop, and I was fortunate to have a really awesome team around me that helped me bring this vision to fruition. And so it started with just Jeannie Stark. She is our EWS resource teacher. I realized early on that I was going to need somebody specifically devoted to this work, because as a principal, you know, how many principals are in the room? Am I the only one? Okay. Well, even okay. As you know though, just as educators, whatever your role is, you're pulled in many directions, okay? And so I knew that I needed somebody to kind of help me stay laser focused to the work at hand. So we brought Jeannie in. We built a system around attendance, behavior, and course performance. And the work has evolved year after year. And so this year, we were at the point where we were realizing we got to make our way into those middle schools. We really have to communicate with those principals. We need to communicate with their teachers. We need to kind of communicate with the students, because that's what we're here for. And so as we talk about agency, belonging, and connectedness, we're really hoping to do that with this work. So we thought, you know, our math scores were lower than that of our ELA scores. And so we, you know, thought we've got to take this one step at a time, and we've got to be intentional about what it is we want to focus on. So as a collective group, we thought we want to spend our time and resources and energy, not all, but the majority, in the area of mathematics. You can see some of our stats up here. 29.1% failed the first semester of algebra, and only 12% of math students are proficient as aligned to the SAT scores. So, you know, we recognize that we've got a lot of work ahead of us, but we're ready to embrace that work, and we're excited to do so. So 2022-2023, again, Jeannie Stark said, we don't always have the funding we need to make some of these things happen, right? Budgets, sometimes it's a rough budget year, you don't get the money you thought you were gonna get, therefore you can't always pay teachers stipends for their time after school. Sometimes it's hard to get them together within the school day, finding subs, etc., etc. So she applied for a grant, and we were just very fortunate that we got that grant. And with the grant, and of course with all of our help and support from Talent Development Success and also the grant partnership, we have established this vertical articulation work that we've been doing. In December, Manazno's math leaders started meeting with myself and our EWS team to discuss what the scope of work was going to look like. We invited some district support people in the area of math to have them at the table. We really feel like if we're going to do this and do this well, we've got to consider everybody who can serve as a resource to this work. And so we brought in the district math curriculum and instructional support team. And yeah, we've started to meet with our feeder middle schools to just talk a lot of different things math related. It has been really refreshing to hear from our math team and also from the middle school teachers who are just haven't had the opportunity to have these conversations before. And so we are really excited to just continue this work and continue to share our journey. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Strickland so he can talk specifically to the work that is being done. And yeah, we'll answer some questions at the end if we have time.
Yes. So, as Ms. Vigil was saying, this work started in December, and where do you begin with something that hasn't happened for years? Vertical articulation hadn't happened in our district. I've been there 7 years as a year one teacher, so not in my experience at least. We did contact the feeder school department chairs. We set up an initial meeting because, yeah, since we're the high school, we didn't want it to seem like it was a top-down sort of thing. Oh, you're feeding into our school, so here's what we think the expectation should be. Oh, heck no, you need buy-in. So we were actually able to pay our teachers, and nothing wrong with a little food incentivizing. I've heard if you feed them, they will come. MHS vertical articulation, scope of the work. We got together and we discussed what the heck does vertical articulation even mean? What are students learning from one year to the next? Hopefully it should take the form of a coherent and logical process that maximally supports student understanding and progression. So we essentially met with all three of our middles and we discussed, well, what do the boots on the ground show currently? Because before we can talk about these lofty ideas of where we'd like to be, well, where are we at right now, and where are our students at right now? So that is kind of where we began. Oops, apologies. So the magic happened. I believe all these presentations will be shared at the end. I think we don't mind sharing any of this stuff. Anywho, so meeting with our feeders. This is a partial list of suggested topics. We talked about each one of these and got buy-in. Manazno, we are fortunate in that all my math teachers have the same collaboration period. So last school year, we underwent a process known as data-wise. So we took a look at all of our data and what's it showing. And the data could be anything as long as your teachers agreed that that was legit data you wanted to analyze. So my department, we ended up creating common assessments for every standard that we were covering. We broke down our final by the standards. And we tallied in our classes how many of our students are showing proficiency on these standards. But it doesn't have to be a final, it could just be, we could do the same thing with regular unit assessments, but to do this kind of work, it's a bit of front loading. So we just decided, well, let's start with end of semester stuff, and then starting this next school year, we'll start drilling down into the smaller data. Huge focus, standards alignment. So that's kind of where we started as Manazno. But vertical articulation, standards alignment, curriculum development, and just general best practices. Are all things that we have been talking about a bit so far and have more work to do. So, collaboratively, we create monthly agendas. This is not a top-down sort of thing. Our middle schools do not have common collaborations, so this work does have to happen after school. So we meet, we discuss, we create wrong click, February agenda. So for our February agenda introduction, we always start off with, this one doesn't have it. No, there it is. What is one goal you'd like to achieve from this group? We always start with norms and positive share-outs of what we're noticing in our groups. And I think that's kind of the structure we typically go with for our instructional council, for our staff meetings. So we've just been sticking with that structure. I don't think there's too much that I wanted to share on this one. So we get as far into the agenda as possible. We just recently started talking about what standards is math currently covering and what are the supporting standards that you guys have at your level to build into it. We've kind of started shifting focus with that last meeting, however. The math department at Manazno, we are grading for equity, standards-based grading. But our feeders aren't, it's not that they don't like the idea, it's that based off our students, what are our students struggling with the most? And it's the perseverance, it's that socioeconomic learning. It's not so much the content itself, but everything that supports the student to succeed with that topic. So starting with this last meeting in April, we've actually started to shift away from standards-based grading to maybe a mathematical practices sort of system. So similar idea, but to really prioritize that student growth and especially the student growth. So we decided that we needed some help. So in April, my math team, we have read Mathematical Mindsets. We have read Grading for Equity. And now to help with this vertical articulation process, is there another book? Do we want to reread one of those? Productive Math Struggle. So this next Monday, the 15th, we start a book study and see what it has to say about this. So collaboratively working together to create BOY placement tests and EOY placement tests. Manazno, we have had a mixed history with intervention classes. So we are bringing them back next year, and we are bringing back in a very pointed, in a very specific way to try to address where our students are struggling. So BOY placement tests. Tests are not a desirable thing at any level of education, or especially at the kids, at the high school level. Kids do not like tests, big surprise there. So how else can we place our students? How do we identify the students that need intervention? Well, we will have a placement test, but the students don't know that it's a placement test. Middle school teachers, they typically give finals. In Albuquerque, they also have to give what's known as iReady. So instead of creating a separate EOY placement test or a BOY placement test, we are just going to be using that data. We are going to be taking a look at attendance rates and prioritizing students that are showing up and are yet still struggling. That way, hopefully, we can better meet the students for where they are actually at. So, continuing the work, as I shared, we're starting our book study on Monday. We decided the book in collaboration. We have a lot of support from the district. We have a math support specialist. We've known her for years. She is huge into grading for equity, and I thought she's been pushing my math department to do standards-based grading for years, and we finally did it this year. So I was nervous when the discussion switched to, well, instead of standards-based grading, what about the mathematical practices? Completely on board with that idea. But, you know, as these things go, we are hoping to get more buy-in from our middles. Yes, our middle schools have buy-in, but we are meeting with 1 to 2 members from each school. So something we would like to do is, well, like on May 15th, that's Manazno's graduation day, so the math department's spending the morning to meet with even more of the teachers that we haven't been able to meet yet. We are hoping to have a summer session where we can do the exact same thing, because when you're meeting for an hour and a half after school, we always go over in time, because that's how motivated we are to get this work done. So just hoping to continue from there, review, reflect, rethink, revise the vertical articulation format. As shared, when you're doing everything collaboratively, these things kind of just naturally adjust and change as you go.
So and we know we have some other presenters and we want to be respectful of the time. This just quickly highlights the work that we've been doing over the course of the last 4 years to build a student success system and to really be laser focused on the things that we feel our students would benefit from most. We do think it's important that students have voice, and we've been including our students to give us feedback on what they feel they need. And in addition to the work that has been outlined, we received some additional at-risk funding from the State Department. And with that, as an instructional council, we all felt like we wanted to hire a math interventionist so that they really, it's just another person on deck to take a look at the students who are needing the most support so that we can provide it to them, and the teachers then can also then focus on students who are doing well and enrich their learning experiences along the way. We just wanted to leave you with a couple of quotes. Progress begins with the belief that what is necessary is possible. And I really feel that we've lived that the last 4 years, in spite of all of the challenges that have been presented to us. And we have a powerful potential in our youth, and we must have the courage to change old ideas and practices so that we may direct their power toward good ends. As Dr. Belfont started his presentation this morning, he talked about that bridge from the bay to the city. And I feel that similarly, we have had that same mindset at our school to really find ways and resources to build so that every student feels that they have the support, the time, and the resources necessary to support them along their trajectory in their educational experience. This is our contact information. Like I said, we are happy to share this presentation with you. And yeah, please reach out to us if you have any questions. We'd be happy to sit with you or talk to you if you're interested in any of this.
I just wanted to see if, Anthony, if you would mind sharing how the student voice within the high school team has been playing out as far as grading, if you share how you're capturing that and then using it.
Okay, so student voice and this work in general, or?
The grading piece where you asked them, they gave you input and you changed the practice.
That's right. With this morning's presentation, we discussed how does student voice affect the process? How do students engage? So, as I shared earlier, this was the first year my department tried standards-based grading, and it is a huge shift in mindset, both for the teacher and the students, because students are so used to it almost transactional in nature. It's not implicit, it does not build implicit motivation at all. So when you do standards-based grading, you're not really supposed to grade their behaviors. You don't really grade homework. And when you think about a place like Manazno and the students that we serve, so many of our students are working full-time jobs. I have several students that are the primary breadwinner in their households. So things like homework become barriers to success for these students. My geometry team was super on board with standards-based grading, and we started out the year following the Grading for Equity book to fidelity. But we believe that student voice is important, and how are students actually succeeding with this as the book says they should be. So in December, after we did the final, and again, through the DataWise process, we are making data-driven decisions over what to cover, what to review, sort of stuff. We got feedback from our students. Is this working? What are some changes you would like to see? What are just general survey type stuff? Asking for feedback, and well, I don't want to say hate. We hesitated, but we ultimately brought back homeworks in a small capacity. because students wanted the grades. Yes, frequent feedback is super important to students. That way they know where they're at and can see and track their growth. But if they don't have that carrot dangling there for the grade, we found that less than 10% of our students were doing the work that would help them succeed on the standards. So based off that student feedback, we are doing graded assignments again. And they are a tiny portion of the grade, but it has made so much difference this semester with that kind of buy-in. Did I address? Thank you.
That's the most important part.
All right.
Agreed.
Well, thank you. I want to conclude our presentation for this session and turn it over to all of you.